Did you know he'll help you understand? Did you know always a right-hand man? Did you know he's gonna make it clear? Did you know? Come on, listen here. Did you know?
Hello and welcome to the Did You Know Show. My name is Brian Green, and today we are focusing on the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware. And with me today I have Denny Ferrara, who's Executive Director of the Foundation, and we have Dr. Kolb and Dr. Kraji from the Nemours AI DuPont Hospital for Children. And we're going to talk today about, obviously, the foundation, and then Dr. Kolb and Dr. Kraji are going to talk about research. And we are going to have all kinds of interesting things that's going on. You guys have a mud run. And
yeah, next week.
Oh, wow.
Next week, let's go. You don't have anything to do you, Brian?
I get in the mud with you if you want me to.
Okay. I think Andy needs somebody on his team.
Well, without further ado, that's a great segue into the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware. Tell us about it. How did you get to start or found?
Okay.
What's the history?
So the history goes back to 1998 when my daughter Natalia was diagnosed with a high-risk form of leukemia. She was 3.5 at the time, and I was a baby myself. So she was diagnosed in February, and I remember thinking, it was the worst day of our lives. And you it's like a train hits you and you're like a deer in headlights. But once they started treatment in a couple days, I remember thinking, okay, we can do this. But then they come at you and tell you it's a 2.5-year long treatment. Yes. And, give or take, and as well with a lot of highs and a lot of lows. So went through that with Natalia. I had just had my son, Nicholas. He was only 2 months at the time. So we dealt with that, went through it for 2.5 years and a little bit longer. And I got a little bit involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at the time.
Okay.
And just a little bit, I kind of dabbled here and there, but my main focus was still to take care of my children. And I lived every day kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think to an extent I still do to this day. So fast forward a few years, two more children, so total of 4 kids.
Right on.
And I decided I needed to do something to make a difference. I didn't know what that was, but I just didn't want to be asking people for money and not really knowing where it was going or asking someone to help with this and that. I wanted to make a difference. So I knew that research needed to be funded. And I knew there were phenomenal, smart people out there in the world that were walking away from their research jobs because there was no money in it, there was no funding. So when they got married, decided to have family, they decided maybe they needed to do something different so they could better provide for their family. And that was really breaking my heart because obviously research is the answer to a possible cure. So we started this little foundation called the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware. And I like to say that it's a mom and pop organization, 100% volunteer driven.
Okay.
Myself included as the director and the founder. And then we have a small team of volunteers that are phenomenal. I call them to action and they jump. So great group of people. So we started that in 2007. We started it with doing a black tie gala.
Oh, okay.
And we started with a little 5K, and then someone said, you need to look at these mud runs. And so my husband started watching videos, and we decided to start with the Delaware Mud Run, the first original muddy event in Delaware. And 11 years later, here we are, and we've added to it a junior mud run, which so far to date has almost 2,400 kids registered. And that event takes place next Thursday.
Where at next Thursday?
Frightland, down in Middletown, Delaware.
Let's dial it back a little bit. So you mentioned Natalia, and I guess if I'm doing my math correctly, she's somewhere around 25?
She just turned 25 about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and so how is she? Is she still in treatment?
Nope. So she's no longer in treatment and hasn't been for many, many years. But she's, as they say, in remission and cured of cancer. But back then, again, my call to fund research, she was receiving high doses of chemotherapy that they would have given to adults. Am I right, Andy? Okay. So a 3.5-year-old is getting high doses of chemotherapy. As well, back then, they gave us an option to do a cranial radiation,
Oh, my goodness.
which I found out even probably 6 or 7 years after that, they don't do that anymore. But it was an option. And again, we were young parents and we knew nothing. And so we only went, they said it tends to hide in the central nervous system. A lot of times we do cranial radiation to maybe prevent that from happening. So of course, we were willing to do whatever we could. So we did that. So she had 15 doses of chemo as cranial radiation, which is a lot for a little 3.5-year-old brain.
I bet.
Yeah. So so to date, she's 25. She works full time. She actually works at the child care over at Nemours. She
Okay.
just started that a couple months ago. But her treatment left her with long-term side effects, which, you know, I thank God she's here with us. But there's side effects that I think we and she will have to deal with the rest of her life.
And even though she is cancer-free at this point, you have poured yourself and volunteers into the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware.
We have.
You know, it's interesting, you know, you do get close to the practitioners and research folks when you have a child with additional needs. I can speak from experience.
Absolutely.
My daughter has low vision. And anyway, you know, it's like you said, research is so important.
Vital.
And so we're here in your office down in, I guess this is considered Middletown?
No, this is actually considered Newcastle.
This is Newcastle,
This
okay.
is Newcastle, yep.
And before I go any further, we have to acknowledge the fact that on set today we have Oscar,
Oh, we do. Oscar, the foundation dog.
the foundation dog. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
animals are becoming a really big part of our lives in such a really positive way.
Absolutely.
So if we turn the conversation to Dr. Kolb and Dr. Krauge, Dr. Kolb, you're a hematologist and oncologist at the Children's Hospital.
Yep.
And then Dr. Krauge, you are a research PhD down there. So tell us your connection to the foundation and how do you help us in research and that kind of, what's going on in research, I guess is the question.
Yeah, well, you know,
It's a loaded question, I know.
right. So I met Denny in the early days of the foundation and participated, I think, in every mud run to this point.
Absolutely.
And was a guinea pig for the elite mud run. The elite part is the run, not the runner. But
It's a 7-mile course.
yeah.
Really?
Yes, and we just, it's only a small population of people that do it, and of course, Dr. Kolb steps up to the plate every time, and he took it on our first year.
And I thought
so.
the polar bear challenge was something special.
Yeah, no.
This is such a great day, such a great event. The whole community comes out to support this foundation, support this cause. It's wonderful to be a part of it, and it's so much fun.
It sounds like it. I might have to get down with you guys.
We would love
Yep.
to have you.
Yeah, but I think Natalia's story is a common story that though kids we cure more and more patients every year with leukemia and all types of cancer, we do so at a great cost. That
Okay.
they have side effects. So more than 80% of kids with cancer will be cured.
Oh, wow.
But many of them will live with a lifelong or life-threatening side effect of that treatment or of the cancer itself. So we need to do more. You asked what's the status of research. We need to do more to treat kids with drugs that were designed for kids, not drugs that were designed for adults, and to use those drugs to target the cancer cells more specifically. So that we can kill cancer and not damage the normal cells.
And then, okay, so when we come back, I want to take a quick break. We're getting a signal that we need to take a break. Let's take a quick break, and on the other side, what I would like to continue the conversation is Natalia's treatment then, and then kids' treatment now. You make a really good, interesting point, adult doses versus now you're talking leaning towards, sounds like more children's doses. But let's take a quick break. We'll come back. Stay tuned.
Did you know?
The name Always Best Care has become the most trusted and reliable for in-home senior services. Our caregivers specialize in bringing families and friends closer together and putting smiles in the faces of each and every one of our clients by creating a fun and loving atmosphere. For an in-home healthcare provider that is built on genuine compassion and quality care, look no further than Always Best Care. Hi, I'm Patty Jackson. When I needed help with providing my mother physical and emotional comfort in her time of need, Always Best Care was a godsend. And you can rest assured that they will always be there whenever you call because they care.
They're tried and true. You can trust that they will always take good care of you. Always Best Care.
To schedule an appointment, visit abcphillybristol.com or call 267-909-9248 today.
Did you know?
Well, welcome back to the Did You Know Show. I'm sitting here with some phenomenal individuals, and I always wish, whether I'm on radio or TV, that we could do outtakes of when we're taking breaks and where the conversations go so far away from the subject matter. But to bring it back into focus, we're talking today about the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware. And before we left off when we were talking about research. You know, Denny has a daughter, Natalia, that, you know, took treatment probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And then
1998.
and she was taking, we mentioned adult doses of chemo. And now when you the progression today of, you know, research and that kind of a thing, where Dr. Copeland, I heard you say it correctly, 80% of the people, children in fact, are being cured, but with lasting side effects. What have you seen in research in terms of drugs and I guess, insurance companies? We might as well go there too, to a certain degree. You know, that's why we have foundations, because everything's not covered. But with the foundation research and things like that. And let me just add, in my mind, I'm going in my mind, somebody said to me, I was in a conversation on one of my boards, one of the hospital boards, that the reason why we have such a problem sometimes resolving different diseases and ailments is because you don't have a lot of subjects participating in trials and research and that kind of thing. But it sounds like you guys have made a lot of progress with leukemia in terms of research. So what's going on?
Yeah, so, you know, leukemia in children is rare. So probably about 90% of the kids in the country end up being treated on or according to some clinical trial. So clinical trial enrollment in adults with cancer is rare or is challenging, but in kids, most patients, most families want to go on research studies because it really offers the best therapy out there.
Okay.
So these aren't research studies that have placebos or sugar pills. These are research studies that are offering really innovative therapies. And most of those research studies in the United States are conducted through the Children's Oncology Group. The Children's Oncology Group is a National Cancer Institute-sponsored cooperative group that does clinical research for children with cancer. And it involves about 200 sites in the United States. But like you said, the funding for that isn't enough. There isn't enough funding to do all the research that we need to do. There isn't enough funding to do the preliminary work that we need to do to know what questions to ask. And that's where organizations like the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware come in. We can't do what we need to do without our community supporting us and without our community helping us to do the research for the patients that we're seeing today and help us to do the research that is going to help patients 5, 10 years down the road. It's really a remarkable partnership that we have with them and their commitment to childhood cancer.
So these 200 sites, or the cooperative agreement between the docs, is that domestic or is that international? And for the laymen that are not, you know, physicians or parents that might be watching, what does that then mean? I think what you mean is that if somebody sees something rarer than rare, or there's been some type of breakthrough, you guys share that knowledge.
Yeah, so it means a couple different things. It means that no matter what hospital you walk into in the country, you're going to get pretty much the same treatment. That
Okay.
we've standardized this therapy across all institutions because we know it works best. Right? We know that what treatment regimens work best because we've studied them systematically. It also means that if there is a disease that only affects 50, 100, 500 kids a year, in the United States, that can be very difficult to study. It'd be very difficult to study in a rare population. But if we have all hands on deck, if we have everybody trying to capture those kids and put them on a clinical research study, we have a much better chance of improving survival and improving their outcomes.
So is that 200 doctors, or not 200, 200 sites, is that around the world, or is that domestic, or?
It's North America with a couple sites in Europe and Australia and New Zealand, but we also work collaboratively around the world. This is a small community of people that are dedicated to improving outcomes for children with cancer. So we work very closely with our friends and partners in the European Union, in Japan, and in Korea, all over the world.
So how does your colleague, she's been quiet, but we want to bring you into the conversation. How does Dr. Erin Croggy, fit in with the gang?
Sure. Yep. So I've been doing cancer research for quite some time. I was working in industry for a while, and I decided to go back to get my PhD. And at that time, I actually met Dr. Cole, and he was kind of looking for a grad student that could really take on genomics work. So that's where we do this new kind of sequencing where we can actually sequence an individual's genome and or their cancer genome. But the ability to do that and analyze that data is actually, it's kind of hard and unique. So I worked with Andy through the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware to get my PhD, which was solely focused on pediatric oncology cancer genomics. So my entire PhD dissertation was only focused on pediatric leukemias. And then
we use mud run money for her to do the work.
We're going to get to that mud run.
And we analyzed a really large clinical trial by the Children's Oncology Group.
Okay.
We sometimes refer to as COG. So we had a large data set that Andy, as a leader in that community, had access to, and so that's what I used for my dissertation to really try to figure out how can we develop sort of these computational approaches to find these genomic lesions that can be linked to new treatments or risk stratification and those types of things, and cancer predisposition if we're talking about germline, which you mentioned earlier.
One of the remarkable things about Erin's work and other people in the field is that we've learned that leukemia isn't one disease. It's probably 100 different diseases.
Okay.
And the leukemia that an adult gets is very different from the leukemia that a child gets. So back to Natalia's story, using a one-size-fits-all approach for an infant or for a child and for an older adult isn't going to work. It's gotten us to where we are, but it's gotten us to that point with a lot of cumulative side effects and a lot of treatment failures too. And so as we understand more about the genetic events that drive cancer cells and how they're different in kids than they are in adults, we're really learning that kids need different therapies. They need different treatments. We can't just take drugs off the shelf that are used for adults with AML or adults with ALL, two different types of leukemia, and expect them to work the same way in children.
So I have a couple of questions from that comment. AML, what's that?
Acute myeloid leukemia. It's of the subtypes of leukemia, it's less common, but it's much more difficult to treat.
Okay. And then for those parents or family members or the village that's watching, when you're trying to really, first of all, when you get diagnosed, for those parents that don't have a nearby pediatric facility like, Numerous, if you will, or St. Christopher's Hospital for Children in Philadelphia, or CHOP, when you're really in those places that have more adult facilities, what do you tell a parent? Do you guys, obviously, I guess you communicate, but do you support those hospitals that are more focused on, I guess, adults or a mix of the population?
Yeah, so one thing that we've learned is that children are best cared for by people that know how to take care of children. So we would, we do and we can keep kids close to home, but there's some aspects of treatment that really need to be administered in specialty centers. On the East Coast, nobody's that far from a specialty center. There are some other parts of the country, other parts of the world, where patients have to travel for hours to get to one of those specialty centers. But for specific phases of treatment, that's really critical.
And so, great segue into how the foundation can help those families that are probably out of the area get to good research and good docs that can really give that tailored approach to the diagnosis.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to take a break and I want to come back on the other side. I want to talk about some upcoming events with the foundation.
Okay.
I want to talk about how we can support the foundation because the foundation does a lot. So that you softly said it in a really mildly way that sometimes people are not in those areas that have those specialty areas. So let's take a quick break and we'll come back on the other side. Stay tuned.
Did you know?
Special purpose in life, and that is to help others who are less fortunate than us. With your assistance, the Leukemia Research Foundation will help make a difference. I promise you.
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is a DHS-approved Medicaid provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services. Doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations always.
Did you know?
Welcome back to the Did You Know Show. The Did You Know Show is centered around connecting people to home, community, and business resources that you ordinarily wouldn't know about. I want to invite the listening audience to check out my radio show, WURDradio.com, 96.1 FM or 900 AM on Saturdays at 4 o'clock. Today we are talking with these really intelligent and really uplifting people, and I really wish, and I mean this, that sometimes when we take the break that we could really capture a lot of that conversation and energy. But we're going to do our best to bring it back. And I want to talk about, the upcoming events for the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware and, the outreach. So you have the Mud Run. We've been talking about the Mud Run.
The Mud Run.
That's one of the marquee events that obviously raises money. So let's talk about that first and then where the money goes.
Okay. So we have it's called the Delaware Mud Run. We started that 11 years ago. So it was an event. We based it, it's a team event.
Okay.
You can run as an individual, but we really encourage people to run as a team of 4 because in my mind, through the cancer life, you can't do it alone. It takes a team. So we ask that you start the race together and finish the race together. Whatever you do in between is between you guys, but we want you to start it together and we want you to cross that finish line together. So that was kind of how we started it. But again, people can do it as an individual. And it started out.
Was it always 7 miles?
No. It's a 5K
Okay.
with about anywhere between 22 and 26 obstacles. So you climb up, you slosh, you slip, you get an ice bath at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they've been doing that the past 5 years, I think.
Yep, it was a surprise.
Yeah, wasn't an original, and it was a surprise. So it's crazy.
So you need 4. Excuse me. So you need 4 people that can run at your pace.
Absolutely.
It's like when you go to the gym and you're swimming, you got the slow, medium, and fast.
You do.
So when you're running or walking, so
but that's the beauty of having a team because
Right.
if you're slow here, hopefully they're going to carry you a little bit. But again, it's not about winning.
Okay.
It's about an experience and it's about giving back while you're having fun doing it. I think a mud run is something that people do, unlike Andy. Andy's done it 10 or 11 times. Most people do it a few times in their lives, but we do have some hardcore people that have been here year after year after year, and it's amazing to watch.
They come with their bandanas and their
They
mud,
do,
like, "Ah!"
they do, and their tutus, I'm telling you. It's an amazing event. It's a lot of fun. There's so much camaraderie. You can tailgate before, during, and after. It's just a fun time. And the way you end it is going through the big mud pit. You never know what you're going to find in that mud pit. I'll never forget, 4 years ago, this little boy popped up. He came up under the barbed wire, and there was a frog right on his head. It was just such a crazy experience. But to me, that was like what the mud run's about. It was funny. It was, I don't know, it's exciting. And then when we brought the kids into it, it's just a whole nother realm to watch these kids get muddy and be allowed to get dirty and, ruin their clothes or whatever it might be, and go up and give their parents and their grandparents a hug because they're all muddy and they think it's funny. It's so uplifting. I mean, the bottom line is we're raising money for a dreaded disease, but the event itself brings so much fun and at the same time awareness to what we're doing.
So Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware is a 501c3. You can look at the bottom of the screen. You can figure out, how you want to make your donation. But then, where does the money go to? I mean, like, break it down. How is it allocated to research and that kind of thing?
Well, 100% of it's allocated to research.
Okay.
We try the best that we can to get everything donated.
Okay.
When we run an event, we try to get everybody to sponsor a piece of it so that there's very little money coming out of the money that we raise, but every dollar that we raise goes directly to research. And in the past, it'll be now 7 years, we're on our second $1 million grant to Nemours AI DuPont Children's Research Hospital, funding Andy and Aaron's work and their team. Which they're working so hard. If you actually go behind the scenes, and I've done it twice with Aaron, it's amazing to watch what they do. And amazing to watch someone like Andy, who is on the research side of it, so he's back there, and then he comes out and he's at the bedside with the kids. And he's got such a great rapport with the children and with the families. And then he comes out and he gets in the mud, and I know he's jumped out of airplanes, and he kind of just does it all. But he supports what we do. Because I think what we're doing for him makes him happy. But for the work that they do, it's hard, and they need to be dedicated. And for him to come out and get muddy and dress up and bring his team out, it just says a lot about him as a person and Aaron as a researcher. It's amazing. They're just, to me, they're the all-around people.
So when you say research, Dr. Kolb and Dr. Kraji, where are you guys researching now? Like, you've said it, and if you don't mind breaking it down to, I guess, the layman. And I guess you do that all the time anyway, because you're talking to parents. Maybe not so much about the research, but you have confidence. And then what I like about you, Dr. Kolb, not having really known you before now, is that you owned up to you said, the phrase I think you used was mistreatments, and because it is, you're practicing medicine. But through your research, I have to believe that you have some level of confidence when you see things coming back and forth. So let's talk about research, and when you get the funds, where do you go? I know most docs have a wish list, of the toys and the instruments and that kind of thing. Where are you guys really trying to gear your research now? How do you strategize?
Yeah, well, I can start. Well, first of all, Denny's faith and investment in us over the years in the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware has really been transformative. I mean, we're so honored and privileged to be a recipient of these funds. It's a lot of added pressure to take funds from the community and friends and family. We are accountable to how we use those funds. We're always accountable to how we use our funds. But when we see how hard Denny and her team works, her very small team works to raise these funds. We want to make sure that we use it in a way that has a maximal impact. And our focus has been on characterizing childhood leukemias in such a way that we can identify new therapies. So identifying things that are unique about the leukemia cells that aren't shared with normal cells and aren't shared with adult leukemia cells that can really provide a differentiating treatment that's going to have a huge impact. And Denny took a flyer on us 7 years ago and invested in this research program. And in that time, Nemours is now one of the top 20 children's cancer programs in the country. We have research efforts that have started here in Delaware with Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware funding that are now going global. Clinical trials that have started here that are now going to impact children all over the country, all over the world. And the work that we're doing is redefining how we think about leukemia cells, redefining what causes leukemia and how we should treat those leukemia cells, treat the causes of it. And that's kind of the foundation of Aaron's work in understanding the genomic events that lead to leukemia.
So let's get there. What are some of the genomic events? Did I pronounce it correctly? Yeah. What are the genomic events that could potentially lead to leukemia?
Yeah, so we've noticed that, especially in kids' pediatric cancers, they have just much more complex genomic rearrangements than in adults. So we tend to call them like structural events or structural variants that are really large events that are taking place at the chromosomal level. So I kind of think of our research right now as two arms. One is, to your point, it's the N is small, and so we have to work with the Children's Oncology Group and get involved with these large clinical trials and really leverage the genomics from that. But at the same time, how do we bring that to the patients at Nemours? And so we're also in parallel really trying to set up a genomics platform or a genomics team that can offer these types of assays or molecular biology techniques in real time. So we're trying to leverage this, the way I see it is this national collaboration where we can really gain a lot of momentum and information about all these events and then figure out how to develop a platform specific in Nemours that we can then apply those at the bedside with the children.
And so when we were on the break, we started the conversation, I cut you off, Denny, about the arm. Can we get back to that? What does that mean, the arm?
Talking about the Children's Oncology Group?
Yes.
Yeah. So when Andy was talking about it, it's amazing how it's come, back around, and it's 22 years later. But at the time when Natalia was diagnosed, they said she will be taking a form of therapy off of the Children's Oncology Group. And there were, I think, if I remember correctly at the time, there were 4 arms of it, A, B, C, or D. And so I guess, they all just kind of take a different path. I mean, they all have, hopefully, the end result. But I think one has, one is more invasive or whatever. Well, they gave her the one that I think was the strongest and the most invasive because she was high risk at the time that she was diagnosed. So they kind of chose it for us. They originally were like, just pick a letter, and I didn't even know what I was talking about. I was like a deer in headlights. So they chose it, and I'm pretty sure it was Arm D because it was the most strongest, most potent therapy that was going at the time. So you just kind of, I think, cross your fingers and pray that whatever form of therapy they're giving her is going to work. But again, throughout that time, I mean, it was hard. It's hard on a little body. I can remember her saying to me, please don't give me that. It's not my favorite color. It's not my favorite kind. Mommy, it's torture. We talked about being a caregiver.
Right.
And being a caregiver, someone I don't know, I don't know if I do a better job, a worse job, but caring for your own child is probably one of the most heartbreaking things because she could make no decision in her life. She was 3.5 years old. She couldn't play with her friends. She couldn't go outside. She couldn't. And I had to give her these medicines when she wasn't in the hospital. We had to, she had to get spinal taps. And I mean, I would not wish it on my worst enemy to have to watch your child go through something like that. And again, at the same time, while we're at the hospital, there are many kids that were there that had it a lot worse than we did. But again, watching your own child go through that, it was just, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
Are there support groups? I know, for low vision.
There were, absolutely, because I know, I think the divorce rate for parents that go through something like this, I heard was very high. They offered us, a lot of support and counseling, absolutely. But I think our support came from our family and our friends and the doctors and nurses because I had a lot of faith in them. And a lot of them, they're the most understanding, caring people that I've ever met. I mean, they're caring for my child. Meanwhile, they have to go home because their child's sick at home with the flu, but yet they're giving 110% to my daughter. So you can't say enough about what they do and what they've done and continue to do for these children and patients. But we took our village, our family and our friends and our community people who are the same ones that are supporting the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware to this time, today.
You have a connection to it.
We do.
Wow,
And they do.
Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware, it's interesting, my daughter has low vision. And so when a doctor comes and tells a new parent that your child has something different or something that needs additional needs or complex needs, you're absolutely right, because you're like a deer in the headlights, and I can relate to that. So he's like, oh, legally blind, what does that mean? Like, I thought you were either you could see or you weren't blind,
right,
for instance. But to your point, as a parent, it's your kid now. What do you do? What now is the next move? What to do? And then when you look at physicians, and I remember quite a few physicians that we'll talk on another show about blindness. Shout out to Overbrook School for the Blind, because I know they watch. But when you have a doctor or a research doc that has this center of calm, talking to Dr. Kolb, I don't know a lot about leukemia, and honestly, I've heard about it, and not until it's really sometimes, unfortunately, people, until it's yours directly or indirectly to deal with, you really don't pay attention.
No.
And so people want to help, but then how do you help? So you help, you build a foundation. And kudos to you, because you stuck with it even after your daughter kind of, the life after, cancer. But I mean, cancer does, as Dr. Kolb says, as I heard, sometimes has long-lasting side effects. Dr. Kolb, back to you. When you're talking to parents and talk to people out there now that may have this kind of situation, what do you then say? I mean, what do you say to the parents? I mean, because you have a center about you, and so do you, by the way, Dr. Kraji. You're searching for the answer, and as a parent, you want to buy into that. You want to say, okay, what do we try now? So especially if and I know, because I have people in my life that have had different things. I guess sometimes it's a mental roller coaster, because sometimes things work, and sometimes they don't work. But you're kind of the coach that brings the family, in a lot of ways, back to focus. So I guess that kind of fuels. I'm asking, does that fuel your enthusiasm for chasing the research?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think that taking care of patients makes you want to do better, and the only way to do that is through research. But I'm just one person on a huge team: nurses, social workers, psychologists, child life therapists, music therapists. We got dogs in the hospital. We got everything, and
the village.
We got the village, and the role I play is to guide the medical treatment. But I think the faces that families see the most are the nurses and the social workers and the psychologists and the therapists, and they such a dedicated, wonderful group of people that are there to support families and to support the child and support siblings. I mean, this is a really disruptive event, and often these families have other young kids at home, so making sure that the whole family is supported is a huge challenge. That's a lot more than I can do. So we just, we have a great team, and I think we inspire each other. I want to do better because I see how hard my team works, and hopefully vice versa.
Now, to not to get off topic, but when we were talking off break, I remember somebody mentioned St. Jude. How do you connect with St. Jude?
Yeah, so St. Jude's part of our research network. It's a really a tremendous organization with a tremendous in-house philanthropy program, and they dedicate a lot of resources to taking care of kids with cancer.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to continue our conversation with the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware. Stay tuned.
Did you know?
The name Always Best Care has become the most trusted and reliable for in-home senior services. Our caregivers specialize in bringing families and friends closer together and putting smiles in the faces of each and every one of our clients by creating a fun and loving atmosphere. For an in-home healthcare provider that is built on genuine compassion and quality care, look no further than Always Best Care. Hi, I'm Patty Jackson. When I needed help with providing my mother physical and emotional comfort in her time of need, Always Best Care was a godsend. And you can rest assured that they will always be there whenever you call because they care.
They're tried and true. You can trust that they will always take good care of you. Always Best Care.
To schedule an appointment, visit abcphillybristol.com or call 267-909-9248 today.
Did you know?
Welcome back to the Did You Know Show. Again, these outtakes have been really great while we're sitting here. But I want to just turn the conversation to Denny for a little bit. We've talked a lot about the leukemia research and the foundation. We talked about, research and, how you allocate money, the upcoming events and that kind of a deal. But for the parents that are watching, or the village, when you have multiple children, you said something really that struck a chord with me. A lot of times, this could put a stress on a relationship, especially if it's your new child. And then also if you have multiple children, how do you balance that? You've, at least from my perspective, sound very successful at it. I mean, you have a clear head, you have a great focus, and you obviously have a good heart because you took it to a foundation level and you have fun with it. That's normally how foundations start. But when you're, for the other parents that are watching, that and this doesn't really talk to any specific social or economic background. When you have multiple children, what are some of the things you try to do to make it work? When you're focusing on one child, you're focusing on one child obviously for the obvious reason, out of need.
Absolutely.
How do you keep the balance?
Well, first of all, I will remember, so my son Nicholas was born in November. He was born November 7th. Natalia was diagnosed that February 5th. And I wasn't ready. First of all I wanted to do was put her back in my stomach. I felt like I just wanted to take both of them and put them back in the womb and, keep them safe and sound right inside me. So I was nursing Nicholas at the time. Was not ready to send him home with someone else. I just had a brand new baby, and I wasn't ready to do that. So we actually went up many levels at the hospital, and actually Tom Ferry was there at the time, and they said as long as he isn't a distraction to the doctors, the nurses, to Natalia, or to the other patients, you can keep him with you. Because we knew we were going to spend a lot of time there, and it was about to be a long road together as a family. So he stayed with us, and someone said to me, you're going to be okay because God only gives you what you can handle. And they sent me this little boy that was an angel. I mean, truly was an angel at the time. He didn't bother. The hospital staff fell in love with him. I think he was a distraction in a positive way for other people. Everybody couldn't wait for Nicholas to wake up from his nap or, do you want me to feed him? It was just phenomenal. And for Natalia, he was healing for her. The minute she'd come out of a surgery or she'd wake up in the morning, where's my baby brother? I mean, he was peace for her. So it just worked. We kept him with me, and to this day, I think there's something special about Nicholas, and I think it's because he grew up there in the hospital for the first 2 years of his life. There's just something calming. Everybody says he's an old soul. He's been here before, and I really believe it's because he grew up in Nemours. And Andy's met him, and I think Andy could probably say the same thing about Nicholas. He just walks in a room, and you just kind of, I don't know, he just has a calming effect on most people. And so then came 2 other children, and Natalia was finished. When the third one came, she was at the very end of her treatment. And
third one, give him a name because you're on TV, Mom.
His name is Cross. And Cross came with his own set of challenges. Cross didn't like to be in the car. He screamed. And he also has vision issues.
Okay.
But we didn't know it at the time, and I think that's why he screamed a lot.
Uncomfortable, sounds familiar.
Yep. So I believe, I was like a mama bear. I just wanted us all together. And good or bad, that's how we lived our life. We did everything together. We came together, we left together. And then came the fourth child, Ava. So we are a tight-knit family. And I never forced Natalia's illness on them, but I made sure that they understood it.
Okay.
I made sure that they understood where she's been.
Okay.
And where she is and where she's going. They all support and love her, and each other as well. And to this day, my boys and all the kids are very involved in the foundation, and not because I force them to be, and not because I'm like, I need you to help me here. I give them that option. So 2 years ago at the Mud Run, I will never forget this. It was his freshman year in college. He brought 4 of his friends. And the Mud Run then was on a Sunday. They went to UD the night before to party and hang out with their friends. But that morning at 7 a.m., here they came, all of them, ready to help out with the Mud Run. Where's my volunteer shirt? What can we do? And that afternoon, Nicholas was in his sophomore year at college. In comes this black Jeep, and everybody was hush-hush about it. And I turn around, and all he wanted to do was congratulate me, because they are so proud of the work that we do at the foundation. Yeah, so without forcing them, I feel like we've taught them some really invaluable lessons that will carry on with them for the rest of their lives, and their friends.
Now listening audience, viewing audience, something that you didn't know that we learned about Denny in the beginning is she used to roller skate. If you follow my shows, you know I'm a roller skater too, right?
Yes.
Did you guys ever find yourself in the roller skating rink?
We did many years ago, but I'm scared to go now, Brian. Gosh. But I want to go watch you. That'll bring me back to the rink.
Yeah, we have to get back in the ring.
Yeah, I would love it.
Dr. Kolb and Dr. Kraji, you guys, in a lot of ways, the people, families, want to hold on to your last word. You very, very graciously, modestly gave props, and I do too, to all of the staff, anybody that's taking care of somebody, whether you're a caregiver, nurse, doctor, therapist, social worker, the person that holds the baby while something else is going on,
You work in the hospital cafeteria.
You work in the hospital cafeteria because they are very friendly. And
they are.
And they're good to talk to. They're good to talk to. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. But oftentimes, if we're going to have a real conversation, people want to talk to that attending physician. They want to talk to that physician and get the news. What say you? I don't want to shine a light on you. What say you guys? When you're delivering that, do you prep yourself? What do you reach inside of yourself to kind of give? It can't be easy, and that's what I'm getting to. It can't be easy because on the other side of that, I have been in that situation where you're waiting. You've talked to everybody. Everybody gives you power, but you want to hear what the doctor says. And sometimes, I would be willing to bet some people want fiction, not the real story. Because they want a storybook ending. But all these endings are not storybook endings. Some of them are really, really challenging. And I applaud you for keeping the straight face. But if I could just ask, if I could dig into your psyche, First of all, I want to ask why, when you were in medical school, both of you, or when you decided to do research, what was the interesting thing about oncology or hematology? Let's start with that first, and then go back.
Well, yeah. So, I think pediatrics was easy because kids are a lot more fun than old people.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair.
so that was easy. And then, oncology is just, it's a great mix of science and care. I have the luxury as a pediatrician of taking care of, a relatively small panel of patients with really significant problems. When I look at my kid's pediatrician, there's no way I could do what they do, be responsible for thousands of kids. That's just not the way my brain works. But diving deep into the science and the care of a group of patients with life-threatening problems, that's just what worked for me.
Okay. And Dr. Aaron Kraji, when you had a whole dial of medicine, why did you hone in on oncology?
So for me, I went back for my PhD I've always been interested in oncology, but really working with the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware and Andy has really inspired me to really, since 2012, just focus on pediatrics. So before this, I was doing actually a lot more with adults. A lot of pharmaceutical companies, it's all about the ROI, and unfortunately, making new therapies for children is not going to generate a lot of revenue for most pharmaceutical companies. So by the nature of the beast, I was just more focused on adults. But then working with Denny and this foundation and Andy, starting in 2012, I actually just dropped all of that work and just focused now solely on pediatric cancers. It's been phenomenal. I think Denny's truly an inspiration. I always get choked up when I sit with her. So it's just been phenomenal.
And so, okay, so then where I'm sitting at now, when you think about, you guys mentioned offline, these Tuesday or Thursday meetings. What are they like? What are you doing?
Tumor board.
You said it's a tumor board.
Tuesday morning tumor board meetings. I remember that.
So I think it goes back to your question, how we do have a lot of challenging decisions to make and conversations to have, but we don't do that in a vacuum. We do that with a team of surgeons and other oncologists and pathologists and other specialists and geneticists and nurses and everybody, social workers, and that's the core group of people that help us make these really hard decisions, and it's just an expert team. We go through all of the data, all of the information about the patient. We review whatever literature is out there that might be pertinent, and we use that to help guide treatment. It's a way to make sure that we're staying on a path that makes sense and staying on a standard path. And I think it's also helpful to the families that they know that our opinions are the shared opinions of a really informed group. And then we also, we talked earlier how this is a small world that we work in and live in. And most of the pediatric oncologists across the country, we all kind of know each other. We're not too many degrees of separation from each other. So if I get questions all the time from other hospitals, and I ping other hospitals with questions about my patients, it's the nature of what we do. Got to get it right.
You got to get it right.
Got to get it right.
So what's to come? What are some of the goals? What are some of the goals of the foundation of Delaware? I mean, with your 7 mile, Delaware mud ride and that kind of thing. Is it going to be 10 miles? I
No.
23.
So we are actually trying to come up with a couple different new ideas, but I don't think I mentioned to you, we do a black tie event, which has always been our signature event. It's really what started, kind of how I started the foundation's fundraising, and that's usually February or March of every year. And, it's not really your typical black tie. It is to some, but it is a fun event. There's a lot of energy. We still get over 500 people every year. Knock on wood. I don't know how we do it, but because there's 1 million black ties in Delaware, but we still continue to bring large numbers. And people that have come actually this past year have already signed up to be sponsors for next year. So I don't know what it is about the black tie, but people love it.
It is. Denny calls everybody.
I do beg, plead, and borrow.
She greets everybody. I mean, this is such a fantastic event, and it's got such a personal feel to it.
It does.
It's what separates.
And your energy is transformative. It is. I mean, you made me realize a lot of different things that have gone on in my very different space with vision.
Right.
But your spirit, it really is contagious.
Thank you.
And I just sit here, I'm involved in my fair share of charities, and I also a lot of times I sit home and I kind of make this kind of checkboard. If I, okay, I'm going to ask this one for Alzheimer's, this one for lupus, and this one, So when you say 500 people that are committed.
They are committed.
Huge.
Yes.
It's not easy, that's not, for all my not-for-profits out there, it's not easy. Look at the energy.
It is not easy. No. But I will tell you, here in Delaware, there's something different about Delaware, you guys have to admit.
Yeah. It is.
It's, it's that whole small town community, and I don't know, 1 degree of separation, everybody knows everybody, but our core group of big sponsors, Cassidy Graphics, Cassidy Painting, Apex Piping, Diamond State Recycling, Diamond State Management, there's so many of them, but I know I don't always want to go to them for dollars. but I just sometimes want to go to them for a favor. And just like Andy, I mean, I support Andy and I respect Andy and everything that they do. Sometimes I need to go to him and I'm like, Andy, I have a friend. I need a name. Can you help me out? And I'm not afraid to do that. Sometimes I am, because I don't like to bother him because I know the hours that he puts in. But I feel like I owe that to the people in my community, that I need to somehow give back directly to them. And so that's how I do it. I might ask this one to help this one, but a lot of times when people have a cancer question, like Tim did so many years ago, I'll go to Andy. I'll send him a little text. And
when I think about the mission of your foundation and the mission of Nemours, and how you guys have kind of brought those together. And really, that's really propelled much faster, I think, what Nemours is capable of doing present day. And there is no medical hospital, medical school in the state of Delaware. But by combining something like the Leukemia Research Foundation of Delaware mission and vision with Nemours' mission and vision and goal, we've created sort of this beautiful, research infrastructure that's really, I think, unique to these two foundations kind of coming together and learning experiences. And it's been phenomenal to watch. And that's what I feel always at the Black Tie Gala too, is sort of you get to see these different communities and missions come together, all about kids and helping children and the right cure and the right treatment at the right time and figuring out how to do that. And Nemours couldn't do that alone without a foundation.
Thank you.
So as we wrap down the show, we're being signaled. We're being signaled to wrap it up a little bit.
Boss man. Gotcha.
As we wrap it up, how do people sign up? Do you need to have 4 people to do the mud run?
You don't. You can do it as an individual. The mud run is for people ages 14 and older.
Okay.
And then we have the junior mud run on June 6th, which is for children ages 6 through 13.
Okay.
Go to www.delawaremudrun.com, and both events will be on that page. You can sign up till Friday night this week.
Okay.
It's last minute, but it'll be back around.
On top of mind.
Absolutely.
And then one thing you did say softly while we were off air about the golf. You guys did have a golf.
We do a golf event. We have done it biannually, so it'll be coming up in the fall as well. But we're also looking to do something different and something new and something fun. So
maybe a skating party.
We'll be talking off camera, Brian.
I'm in.
Yeah, you're good. It's a date.
And so, again, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can definitely give the information. We gave the website again. Give the website and the phone number.
So our phone number is 302-545-6364, www.delawaremudrun.com.
Okay. And then, thank you again, Dr. Kolb and Dr. Kraji, for coming.
you.
I really, really appreciate the experience. It's really nice meeting you guys. And then I just want to invite the viewing audience to check out my radio show. I'm on Saturdays at 4 p.m. on WURDradio.com or 96.1 FM or 900 AM. The Did You Know Show is brought to you by Always Best Care Senior Services. We provide in-home care primarily to seniors, but if you're somebody that has had a hip, knee replacement, a back injury, if you're recovering from a stroke or battling cancer, please think about Always Best Care first. That's the show. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Brian.
Always a right-hand man. Did you know?